The Night It Rained by Unahi Vintage Bunny. Hey, Happy. Tony greeted the coming black car, stopping by the street. The man held up an umbrella above himself to shield himself from the heavy storm. Over the past few days, the storm had been getting heavier, leaving most people hiding themselves away in their homes. Tony, though, had a conference meeting to go to, and Pepper wanted him to go, and so he did. The conference meeting wasn't all that great. Now it was 9:40 p.m. when the man was standing at the side of the street, tired as hell, waiting for his driver who had just arrived. He flung the car door open and went to take a seat, shaking off the umbrella and putting it away before he closed back the door with a loud shut. He rests himself on an armrest as he eyes his driver in the rear mirror, who looks back at him. Tony could tell Happy he wanted to go and drive away already. "Heavy storm, huh? Almost caught myself flying away," Tony said with a chuckle, taking a lingering glance at the window beside him, where the rain began to pour harder outside, almost flooding the whole street. Happy nodded his head in agreement, keeping his grip on the wheel. "Yeah. Start the car already, Hap. I'm soaking wet." Happy then began to do his order with a roll of his eyes as Tony began taking off his black suit jacket to dry it off beside him. His suit jacket became drenched, but protected his formal white attire. As the car passes through multiple closed-shut buildings, shops and parks, as it risks through the heavy storm, the windscreen wipers squeak loudly as they clear off the droplets and moisture from Happy's driving view. Through their every speed and turns on the road, the water splashes on the sidewalk. Before they could take another turn, Happy took a firm step on the brake when Tony suddenly placed a firm hand on Happy's shoulder and shook him harshly, raising a hand to point at a figure on one of the street's sidewalks. "What the hell?" Hey, Hap, stop real quick. There, right there. That's a kid. What the hell is he doing out here?" Happy's annoyance turns into confusion with Tony, giving a glance at what seems to be a short brunette, standing on the side of the street as if he's waiting for someone or something, while he lets himself get showered and wet by the storm. "He's the only one out on the streets, poor kid." Tony shifts on his seat, moving to another angle to take a clearer look at the kid from his window. "Tony, I swear, if we're going to bring him in, I can hand my suit to him." Happy clenches his jaw and grips tighter the wheel, putting on a tired demeanour. "Tony, are you sure? We can't just bring someone in." Tony gives him a slow nod after some thinking. "Fine." The car begins to move once again, slowly towards the small figure, stopping, and Tony starts to roll his window down. Now, with a closer look, he could see the brunette just standing there, staring off into space as the rain hit him and made him drenched. He could also notice that the boy began to quiver from the strong wind hitting him. The boy looked like a huge mess. "Kid, hey, what do you think you're doing here? The rain's too strong," he informed, which broke off the boy's gazing. You're Tony Stark!" he gasps, almost slipping from the wet concrete floor by taking a step back, but luckily holds on to the car. Tony gave him a small proud grin at the brunette's surprise. "The one and only, kid. Now, mind telling me what made you think being here is a good idea?" he just asks once again. "I'm just here, I guess. I'm waiting for the rain to go away so I can get back home to my aunt. I can't really see anything," the boy answers with a shrug, taking a look around the empty streets before turning his gaze back to the man. "I don't really know where I am either. I just woke up here and I just need to go see my aunt." "Do you need a ride, kid?" he offers. He could sense that Happy's glaring hard behind him right now. Peter, though, was too stunned at the man's sudden offer. His mouth was hanging open, wanting to say yes, but he was tempting himself. He guessed there would be no tricks or anything. He's just getting a helpful ride with Tony Stark. Do I need to give you something? Sorry, I don't have much. I didn't carry anything valuable with me. You do know I can just try to find a phone booth to call, or I could just wait here for her after the rain's gone, or just..." He was frantically making more and more excuses to stay on the side of the street while he was soaking even more wet and getting colder from the wind. He looked like a fragile leaf at this point. No, it's a free ride. We're also getting back to our tower, kid. I don't mind at all, so does my driver over there. Tony points to the man in the driver's seat, who also gave the boy a small wave, even though the man knew Happy was still annoyed at him. I'm not kidnapping you either, Tony reassured him, unlocking the other side of the door just to prove himself. The kid laughed softly at Tony's last words before his mind has made up to accept his offer. I'm okay then, if you say so. With the boy's final choice, he opens the door from the other side of the car and sits down on the free seat beside the man, closing the door with a slow shut. Tony could see that he was literally quietly exploding with excitement in his seat, trying to keep it all in and quiet himself while the boy looked at him with occasional glances. He grabs his now slightly dried coat and wraps it around the messy boy, who gladly accepts it and even fixes its position on him. The coat is large enough to give the boy a cover, like a blanket. Where to? Happy inquires. 15th Street. The boy answers sheepishly as he wraps himself with his arms to get some extra warmth. Peter's lucky guess to himself was that they were still in Queens. Hopefully was true at least. Happy gave a nod and started the car again with a whir, driving off down the road again. What's your name, kiddo? Tony asks, breaking the short, quiet tension they had. The boy looks at him with a curious tilt of his head. Peter Parker, Mr. Stark, he answers proudly. Then the man chuckles at his pride and places a hand on the boy's curls to ruffle them up. Nice to meet you, Pete. The boy, Peter, widens his eyes at the man's nickname for him and forms a smile. After that, the quiet returns, only the rain thumping outside and the squeaky window cleaners could be heard, and occasionally Peter's shivery exhale. The car's heater was already up high for the boy, and yet Peter felt as cold as ice. The car stops in front of a tall apartment building, and Peter looks at it with nervousness. He didn't know why he felt this way. He felt like something was missing. Thank you for the ride, Mr. Stark. I really appreciate it, he told Tony, opening the door with a click of the handle, but his free arm got grabbed by the man before he could go. My bad. Here, take my coat, please. You're going to get sick out there and we don't want that, kid. Tony warns and tosses the suit jacket at the boy. Peter looks up to Tony with an astonished look before snapping it off, immediately using the suit as a makeshift cover for himself. Thank you so much. I hope we see each other again, Mr. Stark. Peter then began to walk away, shutting the door gently and stepping up to the apartment's doorstep with 2 knocks and a single press on the doorbell, and waited. Back to driving, Hap. The next morning, the sky was as clear as day, and the sun was shining as if a heavy storm hadn't happened. The streets were dry, and people went back to their businesses for the day. Tony, on the other hand, had another conference coming up. He got up early before Pepper could tell him to get his butt off, but he wanted to see Peter once again, just to grab his suit jacket and to check up on him. So he told Happy the address of the boy, and the man drove him off to his destination. Tony got out of the car, slamming the door shut, and began walking up to the apartment stairs to ring the doorbell. He waited, and waited, until a woman, probably in her 40s, came up to the door and opened it for him. Oh, Tony Stark, pleasure meeting you here. The woman greets him as she claps her hands together, opening the door wider afterwards. What do you need? I can prepare you a cup of tea or... No, just a quick visit. Anyone here that goes by the last name Parker? The woman suddenly stops at the man's words. She looks at him with a downcast look before nodding. Yes, May Parker is available, but her husband is away at the moment. Tony mutters a thank you at her as he follows the woman into the elevator, then through the hallways. The woman stops in front of the door and knocks twice. May, someone wants to visit you. Hold on, please wait. Another woman yelled back at her from the room before the door clicks and slowly swings open. So, this must be May Parker. The room seems quite empty, and she seems to be the only one in the apartment. Good morning, Miss Mandrill, and good morning to you too, Mr. Stark. Her content demeanour falls once she faces the man, even taking a step back away from him. I'll leave you two, the woman says, leaving both May and Tony alone as she walks back to the elevator. So, Mrs. Parker, is Peter here? I'm guessing you're his mom, guardian. Look. Guardian, yes, I'm his aunt. What do you want from my nephew? The woman cuts him off, keeping the door between them. Look, ma'am, I only wanted to check up on your nephew and grab my suit back I gave him. She looks at him with a surprised look, beginning to open the door widely. You must be mistaken, Mr. Stark, she told him. You must be talking about a different Peter. Tony shook his head at her words. No, Mrs. Parker. My driver and I dropped him off here, I'm sure of it. May looks at him with a confused look before she decides to let the man come into the room. Please come in, she told Tony, closing the door for him when he entered and walking to her kitchen. Tony began to sit down on one of the couches, crossing his legs. The man could spot some picture frames on top of the shelves and tables, along with some scattered books. The aunt comes back with a plate of cookies and sits down on a chair on the opposite side from Tony. Mr. Stark, she began, folding her hands on her lap. I'm not sure who you met last night, but I am sure that it isn't my nephew. Tony looks at her with a raised brow as he grabs one of the cookies, taking a bite of it as he processes her words. May, you can call me Tony. I saw your nephew on the streets all by himself. Something was up with him. He was waiting for the rain to stop so he could go back to you, and... Mr. Stark, Tony, he's dead. The man froze, placing the cookie back on its plate and giving her confused blinks. I'm sorry, what now? He's dead. He's already buried, Tony. He died at your expo. That made the man choke even more. He stared at her in disbelief as he slowly shook his head at her. No, I managed to drop him off here. Tony looked at the nearest picture frames that the woman had on the shelves. It must be a different boy, he thought. But it was the same brunette boy in her pictures, but his looks were less messy. He died at your Stark Expo. Sure, you blasted one of them for him, I saw, but he was still attacked. She took a deep breath and let it all out. My husband still can't accept his death. He promised his brother, Richard Parker, to look after him. Now he's been distant. Tony looks at her and slowly places a hand on her shoulder, patting. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That was all he could say to her. God, did he really just let a kid die? He can't process this. That was just a sudden information. No, Tony, it's okay. He was such a wonderful kid. I'm just glad you were there before he died at the expo. It's just... She had a face of disappointment rather than reassurance. Tony didn't know what to do or what to say. His stomach was lurching in huge guilt from the told incident. He was such a big fan of yours, Stark. He wanted to be like you someday, she managed to say through her shaky voice, pointing to one of the items on the shelves, a small Iron Man helmet that seemed to be dusty, as if no one had been using it for some time. May I ask, where was he buried? I'm just going to take a visit. May looks up to him and takes some time to fix herself together with some breath. At Harlem Cemetery. He's around there. Tony nodded, putting on a small reassuring smile for her, still keeping a hand on her shoulder. Thank you, May. The man stood up and let go, moving the plate of cookies closer to the aunt. I better go, but I promise to visit your nephew later on, May. With flowers, too. That, at least, made the woman feel better and smile a little as she stood up along with him. She went over to the door and opened it for him, waving goodbye. I'm sure he would love that, Tony. She nodded her head in agreement. After his conference meeting was finished, he had enough time to himself to visit the boy's grave and buy a bouquet. "Hey, Hap, wait over here," he ordered Happy, who parked the car near a shop that sold junk. Tony got out of the car and walked off with the bouquet in his arms, going towards the cemetery nearby, which seems to be it. He searched all around for Peter's grave, passing through each of the tombs to find a hint of the boy's name engraved on it. And he finally did. He found a tombstone that had the boy's full name, along with his birth and death dates and relation carved into the stone, surrounded by white flowers. The same flowers Tony had bought for him. He knelt down and placed it on the ground with the other white flower bouquets. And then he saw his suit, resting and wrapped around the tombstone, now dry rather than drenched from last night. Thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the story and have a lovely rest of your day.